this is where Josh and I get some things off of our chest. I say every week, tomorrow's not promised. Let's cut the people out today. But I want to talk to the some people who have been engaging with our podcast. So we've been on YouTube for a while, a little while now, and every now and then we get clips that get a few more views than others and stuff like that. And I've always known that gun control has been a very sensitive topic, specifically with white people and some blacks who are really interested. And people have said a lot of things about us under this particular comment. And I'm not the one who usually like responds to comments, but I wanted to do a blanket response to a few things. People are saying we know nothing about the Constitution and we're ignorant around the Second Amendment rights. So basically, Brian, they was calling you wrong for saying that the Second Amendment was really about citizens being able to protect the country, right? And I'm gonna read everything in a minute. Okay. They told us that because we were black, that we knew nothing about assault rifles and things like that. I mean, I don't know much about assault rifles, but it ain't because I'm black. I'm not a gun owner that way. What I do know about assault rifle versus a handgun, however, is that they both can be used to kill or harm or seriously injure. However, assault rifles have a deeper and more powerful impact than a handgun. That much I do know just by understanding words and things like that. They also told us that we were contradicting ourselves about, she don't want to take our guns, but a buyback program. I don't think neither one of us was advocating strongly for a buyback program. What we were saying was that it was one of the ways in which she was considering doing gun control. But let me just get into it real quick, and then I'm gonna try to make this as concise as possible. But I wanted to address the thing. So let's just go straight to the Second Amendment of the Constitution. It reads, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Okay. So let's do some background, a breakdown of what this really means. A well-regulated militia, back then in the 18th century, militias were literally considered groups of armed citizens who could be called upon for defense. Yeah. Right? So we had our military, sure, but a regulated militia was a group of citizens that the government would be like, hey, we need y'all help. Yeah. So this phrase means that there could be an idea that citizens were coming together to defend the state, but not necessarily for the individual use of firearms. That was the original intent of the Second Amendment, which means that you can bear arms, but specifically for this purpose, right? Which implies that the existence of militias was considered important for the security and the defense of our country, particularly in times when a standing army was small or not yet established.
Oh, when we have a standing army.
And now we have a standing army. That was the original intent.
Interesting.
So this phrase means that citizens or the people have certain rights. And in this case, because of that reasoning that they saw, we have the right to keep and bear arms. We have the right to carry our own weapons, right? That was the reason why. Now, if we use them for other reasons, the Constitution doesn't speak to that. But it does say this is why we will not tell you not to bear arms, because if we need y'all got guns. This is literally the interpretation of the Second Amendment of the Constitution. However, that definition has evolved over the years. Particularly, I did some additional research, Brian, particularly with the District of Columbia v. Heller in 2008, where the court ruled that the Second Amendment also protects individuals' right to own firearms for lawful purposes like self-defense at home, right? But it is not unlimited, because there were laws regulating guns in sensitive places like schools and things like that remain valid. Okay? And then there was McDonald versus City of Chicago in 2010. The court confirmed that this individual right also applies to states. Then we have New York State versus the Rifle and Pistol Association, the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin in 2022, where the court struck down a New York law requiring proper cause to carry a gun outside of the home, ruling the Second Amendment extends beyond the home. So you are absolutely right when you say the Second Amendment now protects beyond what it was original use. But don't tell us we don't understand the Second Amendment when it was originally written specifically for the purpose that Brian laid out, right? If you didn't understand our language, there's the language that I'm just giving you. Yeah. The original intent was, if there is a militia, which means a regulated group of people who owns guns, and we need to defend because there is no army or there's a very small army, we're going to call on these people to help us bear. So in that case, we're going to tell anybody you can own a gun, but this is why we're making it a constitutional right, because we figure we may need the support. And so because the Constitution left it vague like that, the right to bear arms, right? Further, U.S. Supreme Court decisions validated that you can bear these arms right? To protect your home, defend your family, all these different types of things. We can get into the semantics of a handgun versus an assault weapon. I personally believe that no civilian needs an assault weapon in their home. They do not need weapons of war, right? And you can disagree with me with that. I don't really care, right? I am also not a huge advocate of the buyback program because I don't know that it is going to be the most efficient or effective way to get unregulated guns off the streets because we're depending on the trust and the honesty of humanity.
Yeah.
Right. And most of y'all arguing really don't believe in trust, honesty, and transparency because you're voting for Donald Trump, who is a consummate liar. So let's just say that. And then y'all told us we was contradicting ourselves because we said this, we said that. Yes, Kamala wants to do a buyback program, but you do know those buyback programs in the ways that they've been tested are voluntary. So she's technically not taking your gun, mean they're going to roll up and come snatch your gun. She's not taking your gun. She's proposing this option, which again, I'm saying I'm not a huge advocate for because I just don't believe in I ain't saying I don't believe in this principle. I just don't know it's going to be the most effective thing to get the job done, right? But the buyback programs are literally left up to the people. So that's one. So, but she's not taking your gun. I also have the opinion that assault rifles and AR-15s and all that other kind of stuff are not. These are weapons of war. They're not necessary. And I stand on the principle that if you believe in the police department, a regular on-duty police officer who's patrolling the city does not have an assault rifle on his body. He has a handgun on his body to protect and defend in major situations. That's all that he got until he calls for backup or bigger units. But in the moment, that's all that brother or that sister got. Or that person, that non-binary person, right? That's all they have. So let's make that very clear. And we can argue on that. But what I will never, and I'm not backing down on anything I really said, but what I want to make abundantly clear is that what we're advocating for is gun control. And somebody said that owning a gun is a constitutional right, driving is a privilege. You do know that if you commit a certain crime, your constitutional right to bear arms can be revoked. You also know that if you commit a certain level of crime, your constitutional right to even vote can be revoked, which means that just because it's in the Constitution does not mean you have a blanket level of access to what it says. If you do certain things, you can lose that. You can lose your constitutional right. And the same thing with a car. Yes, it is a privilege to have a driver's license, but as a U.S. citizen, if I'm a U.S. citizen, not go through the process, I also have the right to drive a car, to do the things. But listen, if I get enough DUIs, I get enough this and get enough that, guess what? I can't have a license anymore.
You lose your rights.
I lose my rights. Or in your case, I use the privilege. The only reason why we juxtapose those two things is that we were making the point to say that it is easier to drive a vehicle. And I agree with you up to a certain extent. You are right. Driving a car is a privilege. You got to own a car, thing like that. But it's easier to get a license to operate a vehicle than it is to operate a gun. And do you know? And my thing is the power that gun ownership has. I literally can take someone's life in an instant. And y'all in the comments talking about, well, this don't really happen. You don't understand this. You don't understand crime. What I do know that the majority, all of the mass shooters, particularly in schools, are by people who own guns who probably shouldn't have had one. Right? What I do know is that the United States has very little gun control, and we are one of the leaders in the globe in mass shootings and school shootings. Do you not understand the correlation? All we're pretty much saying is that if there is a process to do some of these other things, and if certain places like schools and churches and the freaking airport and federal buildings can all say you can't even have a gun inside of this space, how much, it's not a far leap to suggest that you should take a test to prove your knowledge about firearm and firearm safety. And then after you do that, do some type of shooting test to prove that you know how to work it, you know how to take it apart, you know how to lock it, and then get a license to carry. But there are states where there is not a license. I don't think that is a high bar.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a high bar at all. So the fact that y'all are in these comments coming at us first, I don't really mind the personal attacks because it's the arguments that you're making to suggest that, one, we don't understand the Constitution when the Constitution is the Constitution. And I just read to you the expansions of it via the Supreme Court that proves you're right. We have the right to bear arms to defend ourselves and defend our homes. My personal opinion is that you do not need an assault rifle or weapons of war to be able to do that. But what I do believe, however, without a shadow of a doubt, is that there should be much more control, much larger barriers of entry for the people who are able to access guns. Point blank, period. And I don't care. And most of y'all didn't come with facts anyway. All y'all said was like most people who support on this side, you're dumb. You don't know what you're talking about. Explain to me the reasons why you disagree. All you're saying is they don't want to take our guns. This is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Then give me the counter argument. None of y'all have a counter argument because all you care about is just having the right to own your gun. And you should be able to own your gun, but you should also be able to have a license and be educated and know how to do. And you should be able to renew it every so often, so many years. These kind of things are low hanging fruit. Mm-hmm. It should be anyway.
Yeah.
These are small things in the bigger scheme of gun ownership. And I believe that if we put some of these things in place, we will see a decrease, not just in regular crime, but in some of these mass because crime, these gun violence crimes, unfortunately, are going to happen until we do bigger things around our justice system, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about, I'm more concerned about the mass shootings particularly. I do believe that gun violence will go down if we put some measures in place, but I also believe it will slow down the number of mass shootings, particularly against our children. A lot of stuff happens in schools, y'all. Mm-hmm. Elementary schools, middle school, high. These babies ain't even understood what life is yet. Churches, innocent people are dying going to Bible study.
Yeah.
Because they got an assault rifle and they're able to do so much damage, and then you take them smiling to Burger King to get something to eat. What?
Yeah.
That man should not have even had access to that type of gun. That man should also not even had a gun without some type of test and evaluation and having a licensure to ensure that he knows what he's doing and he should be able to carry and use it in the right way. Point blank, period, is what I'm saying. And I will stand on that heel. So if you disagree, politely go to YouTube, unsubscribe, block us, whatever you want to do. But we are not backing down on the fact that gun control needs to happen in this country. And until it happens, we're going to continue to see an uptick in gun violence. And not only gun violence, we're going to continue to see these trends of unnecessary mass shootings that impacts on the most vulnerable groups in our communities, which are our elders and our youth. And if you can't understand that at a base level, then sorry to you and go to hell where you belong. Because I have nothing else for you. And that is my greater conversation.
Well, with that being said, this has been another episode of The Jigsaw.
Another episode of The Jigsaw Podcast. Thank y'all so much for listening. Brian, you want to add anything to that? Thank you so much for listening. We love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Brian said like and subscribe. So I'm just going to close this out. All you can do is what you can, while you can, reserve what you can. All you're doing, like a couch your work on done. Love y'all. And for those who are not gun lovers and don't sleep with AR-15s on their pillow, follow us on YouTube.
Please do.
And continue to subscribe.
Balance out those comments.
See y'all next week.
Peace.